Welcome to Crime Case Confidential. In today's episode, we delve into a chilling tale of betrayal and murder set in Springfield, Missouri in May of 2018. This is the story of Mark Stevens, a successful architect whose life was brutally cut short by someone he trusted most. Mark Stevens was a 46-year-old man living in Springfield, Missouri. He was a well-known architect who worked for a local company called Ozark Design. Mark had a big smile and a friendly personality, which made him popular with his clients and colleagues. He had a degree in architecture from Missouri State University and had been working in his field for over 20 years. Mark was married to Claire Stevens. Mark and Claire seemed like a happy couple. Mark was Claire's second husband, and he had a stepdaughter named Emily Harris, who was 19 and in her first year at Missouri State University studying psychology. Mark got along well with Emily, or so it seemed to the outside world. Outside of work, Mark loved sailing. He owned a small sailboat named Dream Seeker, which he often took out on Table Rock Lake. He enjoyed spending weekends on the water, feeling the wind and the waves. His friends at the local marina remembered him as someone who was always willing to lend a hand and share a laugh. In the days before his death, Mark was busy with a big project. He was working hard to complete the design for a large commercial building in downtown Springfield. This project was very important to him in his career. He was also planning a surprise anniversary trip for Claire. He had booked a cabin in the Ozark Mountains and bought tickets to see a concert in Branson. He even picked out a special necklace from a local jewelry store, Reed's Jewelers, as a gift for Claire. Despite his busy schedule, Mark made time to visit the local coffee shop, Java Junction, every morning. He enjoyed reading the newspaper and chatting with the baristas. His favorite drink was a caramel latte. On May 10, 2018, 2 days before his death, Mark was seen at Java Junction, smiling and talking about his plans for the weekend. He seemed happy and excited about the future. Mark's life seemed perfect on the outside, but there were hidden troubles. Claire had been acting stressed and worried lately. She had noticed changes in their daughter Emily and was suspicious of Mark's late-night work meetings. Friends and neighbors had started to notice the tension in the Stevens household. On May 12, 2018, at about 7:30 a.m., Mark Stevens' body was discovered by his neighbor, Michael Everly. Michael was a 54-year-old retired school teacher who lived next door to the Stevens. Claire had called Michael, worried because she hadn't heard from Mark since the previous night. She was out of town visiting her sister and asked Michael to check on her husband. Michael knocked on the door of the Stevens house but got no answer. He noticed that Mark's car was in the driveway, so he decided to try the door. To his surprise, it was unlocked. As he stepped inside, he immediately felt something was wrong. The house was unusually quiet. Michael called out for Mark but got no response. He walked through the living room and into the kitchen, where he saw signs of a struggle, chairs overturned and broken glass on the floor. He followed the trail of chaos to the master bedroom. When he opened the door, he was met with a gruesome sight. Mark was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. He had been bludgeoned to death with a hammer, which lay nearby, covered in blood. The room was a mess, with blood splattered on the walls and furniture. It was clear that Mark had fought for his life. Michael was horrified and immediately backed out of the room, his hands shaking. He pulled out his cell phone and dialed 911, his voice trembling as he described what he had found. The news of Mark's death quickly spread through the neighborhood. Cedar Street was soon filled with police cars, and curious neighbors stood outside, whispering to each other about the shocking event. Local news stations like KWPQ and KRZK sent reporters to cover the story, and by noon it was the top news in Springfield. Detective Sarah Mitchell, 39, known for her sharp attention to detail, and Detective James Carter, 44, known for his methodical approach, arrived to lead the investigation. Together they made a strong team. As the detectives walked through the house, they saw signs of a struggle. The living room had overturned chairs and broken glass. The kitchen had more chaos with dishes scattered on the floor. When they reached the master bedroom, they were met with the grisly scene of Mark Stevens lying on the floor. Detective Mitchell noted the hammer as the murder weapon and ordered it to be bagged as evidence. The crime scene was chaotic and disturbing. The detectives and forensic team took many photos and collected samples. They used gloves to carefully pick up items, making sure not to contaminate any evidence. Blood samples, fingerprints, and the hammer were all collected and sent to the lab for analysis. Outside, neighbors watched as the police worked. Local news stations reported on the shocking murder. Reporters spoke to neighbors who described Mark as a friendly and well-liked man. The media coverage added pressure to solve the case quickly. Detectives Mitchell and Carter interviewed Michael Everly, who was still shaken from discovering the body. He described finding the door unlocked and seeing the mess inside the house. His detailed account helped the detectives piece together the events leading up to the murder. The first suspect in Mark Stevens' murder was his wife, Claire Stevens. Claire was 36 years old and worked as an accountant for a local firm called Razorback Accounting. She was intelligent, meticulous, and hardworking. Claire had a tough past, becoming a mother at 17 and working hard to support herself and her daughter Emily. Despite these challenges, she built a successful career and was known for her strong-willed nature. Claire had recently noticed changes in her daughter Emily's behavior and grew suspicious of Mark's late-night work meetings. Friends and neighbors described Claire as increasingly stressed and on edge in the weeks before the murder. Some said they heard arguments between her and Mark. Detectives Sarah Mitchell and James Carter brought Claire in for questioning on May 13, 2018. Claire appeared calm but was clearly distressed. She maintained that she had been out of town visiting her sister Nancy in St. Louis. She provided photos and text messages to support her alibi, but the detectives still had doubts. During the interrogation, Claire spoke about her relationship with Mark. She admitted they had been arguing more lately, mainly about his work and the amount of time he spent away from home. She denied any involvement in his death, insisting she loved her husband despite their problems. The detectives asked Claire about the night of the murder. She explained that she had left for St. Louis on the afternoon of May 11th and stayed with Nancy until the morning of May 12th. Nancy confirmed this story when the detectives called her. However, they couldn't ignore the tension in Claire's voice when she spoke about Mark and the changes she noticed in Emily. The police also searched Claire's car and belongings for any evidence. They found nothing directly linking her to the murder, but did find a diary in which Claire had written about her frustrations and suspicions. These entries painted a picture of a woman under immense stress and emotional turmoil. The second suspect in Mark Stevens' murder was his stepdaughter, Emily Harris. Emily was 19 years old and a freshman at Missouri State University, where she was studying psychology. She was known for her outgoing and sociable personality. Her friends described her as bright and ambitious, always eager to learn new things. Emily had a complicated relationship with her stepfather, Mark. It was revealed during the investigation that their relationship had evolved into a secret affair. This affair made Emily feel guilty and conflicted, especially as she saw the strain it put on her mother, Claire. Detectives Sarah Mitchell and James Carter brought Emily in for questioning on May 14, 2018. Emily appeared nervous but cooperative. She admitted to the affair with Mark, explaining that it had started about 6 months earlier. She said she had been feeling lonely and confused, and Mark had been there for her. She insisted she never wanted to hurt anyone. During the interrogation, Emily explained how she had confided in a close friend about the affair and her feelings of guilt. This friend, whose name was not disclosed, confirmed Emily's story to the detectives. Emily described the last time she saw Mark, which was the night before his death. She said they had argued about the affair and the impact it was having on their family. The detectives asked Emily about her whereabouts on the night of the murder. Emily said she had been at a friend's house studying for a midterm exam. Her friend confirmed this alibi, saying that Emily had stayed there until the early morning hours of May 12th. Despite the alibi, the detectives were suspicious of the emotional turmoil that Emily was going through. The police also searched Emily's dorm room and her belongings for any evidence. They found nothing directly linking her to the murder, but did find several letters and notes between her and Mark. These notes showed the depth of their relationship and the emotional struggles they both faced. On May 17, 2018, 5 days after Mark Stevens' murder, the police received a significant break in the case. It was a cool, foggy morning when a jogger discovered a suspicious item in the park near Table Rock Lake. He noticed a plastic bag partially buried under some leaves near a bench. Curious, he opened it and found a blood-stained shirt and a pair of gloves. He immediately called the police, and within minutes, patrol officers Karen Lewis and Tom Martinez arrived at the scene. They secured the area and called in detectives Sarah Mitchell and James Carter. The detectives quickly assessed the situation and bagged the items for forensic analysis. The detectives were cautious but hopeful that this new evidence would provide a breakthrough in the case. They brought the items back to the Springfield Police Department's forensic lab. Forensic analysts found that the blood on the shirt matched Mark's DNA. Additionally, the gloves had fingerprints that were not Mark's. This new evidence shifted the focus of the investigation. The detectives revisited their list of suspects and re-examined their alibis. They also reviewed the surveillance footage from the park in nearby areas. This extensive review led them to a surprising discovery. A figure matching Emily Harris's description was seen entering the park late on the night of the murder. Detectives Mitchell and Carter brought Emily in for a second round of questioning. This time, Emily was visibly more nervous. She claimed she had gone to the park to clear her head and had no idea about the bloody items. The detectives pressed her for more details, but Emily stuck to her story, albeit shakily. The forensic team continued their analysis and found another critical piece of evidence: hair fibers on the gloves that matched Claire Stevens' DNA. This discovery complicated the case further and indicated the possible involvement of both mother and daughter. On May 18, 2018, the detectives called Claire back for questioning. She seemed calm but concerned. When presented with the new evidence, Claire admitted to knowing about the gloves, but insisted she had nothing to do with the murder. She said she had worn the gloves while gardening and couldn't explain how they ended up near Table Rock Lake. The police were now more determined than ever to solve the case. They knew they were close to uncovering the truth, but needed to carefully piece together the final puzzle. The discovery of the new evidence was a pivotal moment in the investigation, providing crucial leads and intensifying the search for Mark's murderer. Hey, crime case solvers! Interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and if you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate, leave us a comment. Stay safe, crime case solvers. The third suspect in the murder of Mark Stevens was his ex-wife, Lisa Stevens. Lisa, aged 46, was known for her hot-tempered and aggressive nature. She had a contentious relationship with Mark and had never approved of his marriage to Claire. Lisa lived in Springfield and worked as a manager at a local grocery store, Heartland Grocers. Detective Sarah Mitchell and James Carter decided to bring Lisa in for questioning on May 19, 2018. Lisa arrived at the police station appearing defiant and uncooperative. She had a reputation for speaking her mind and not holding back her opinions. During the interrogation, Lisa admitted that she and Mark had a rocky relationship. She described their marriage as tumultuous and full of arguments. Lisa expressed her disdain for Claire, calling her a homewrecker and blaming her for the end of her marriage. However, Lisa vehemently denied any involvement in Mark's murder. The detectives pressed Lisa about her whereabouts on the night of May 11, 2018. Lisa claimed she was at home watching TV and drinking wine. She mentioned watching an episode of Dancing with the Stars and going to bed early. There were no witnesses to confirm her alibi, which made the detectives suspicious. The police searched Lisa's home for any evidence that could link her to the crime. They found a few items of interest, including a set of gardening gloves similar to the ones found at the park. However, forensic analysis showed no blood or DNA on these gloves. Despite her alibi and the lack of direct evidence, the detectives continued to probe Lisa's potential motive. They discovered that Lisa had recently learned about Mark's affair with Emily, which added another layer of tension and potential anger. Friends and co-workers told the detectives that Lisa had been particularly upset and vocal about the affair, calling Mark a disgrace and expressing her anger to anyone who would listen. The detectives also interviewed Lisa's neighbors, who reported hearing loud arguments coming from her house in the days leading up to the murder. One neighbor, Mrs. Barber, said she heard Lisa yelling about betrayal and lies. Although Lisa remained a suspect, the detectives found it challenging to gather enough evidence to charge her. She was aggressive during the interrogation, but maintained her innocence. The detectives knew they needed more concrete evidence to link her to the crime. The investigation into Lisa Stevens added another layer of complexity to the case, as the detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the events leading to Mark's murder. On May 21, 2018, the detectives received a significant break in the case. A witness came forward claiming to have seen a woman matching Claire's description near Table Rock Lake on the night of the murder. This lead prompted the detectives to revisit the crime scene and search the surrounding areas more thoroughly. During their search, they discovered a hidden surveillance camera at a nearby gas station. Reviewing the footage, they saw Claire's car driving toward Table Rock Lake late on the night of the murder, contradicting her alibi. Armed with this new evidence, the detectives felt confident they had enough to make an arrest. On the morning of May 22, 2018, Claire Stevens was arrested at her workplace, Razorback Accounting. She maintained her innocence, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The community and Mark's family were shocked by the arrest. Neighbors and friends couldn't believe that Claire, a hardworking and intelligent woman, could be capable of such a violent act. The local news stations, including KWPQ and KRZK, covered the story extensively. The trial of Claire Stevens for the murder of her husband, Mark Stevens, began on July 15, 2018, at the Greene County Courthouse in Springfield. The courtroom was packed with reporters and concerned community members. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Robert Johnson, argued that Claire's motive for the murder was her discovery of the affair between Mark and Emily. He presented the surveillance footage, forensic evidence, and the conflicting statements Claire had given to the police. The defense, led by attorney Michelle Williams, argued that Claire was innocent and that the evidence was circumstantial. She suggested that someone else could have committed the murder out of jealousy or anger. She questioned the reliability of the surveillance footage and pointed out that no witnesses had seen Claire commit the crime. Throughout the trial, Mark's family sat in the front row, watching the proceedings with a mixture of anger and sadness. Emily, in particular, struggled with the emotional weight of the trial. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching a verdict. On August 3, 2018, the jury found Claire Stevens guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was tense as the verdict was read. Claire showed little emotion while Mark's family wept and hugged each other. Judge Lisa Miller sentenced Claire to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She stated that the evidence clearly showed Claire's guilt, and that the crime was a result of intense personal betrayal and anger. The reaction to the verdict was mixed. Some in the community felt justice had been served, while others believed the sentence was too harsh, considering Claire's difficult past and the emotional stress she was under. Mark's family, however, felt a sense of relief that the ordeal was over, and that the person responsible for his death was held accountable. After the trial, Emily returned to Missouri State University to continue her studies in psychology. She sought counseling to help her cope with the emotional aftermath and worked hard to rebuild relationships with her family. She distanced herself from media attention, focusing on her studies and volunteer work. Detective Sarah Mitchell received recognition for her role in solving the high-profile case. She continued her work at the Springfield Police Department, investigating other crimes and mentoring younger detectives. Detective James Carter transferred to the Northwest Arkansas Drug Task Force, where he applied his investigative skills to combating drug-related crimes in the region. The community of Springfield held a memorial service for Mark Stevens. A plaque was installed at the Springfield Town Center to commemorate his life and contributions to the community. For Claire, now serving her sentence at the Missouri Department of Corrections, life took on a stark routine. She was allowed limited visits from family and friends, with strict rules governing her daily activities. The community of Springfield rallied around the Stevens family, offering support and understanding as they moved forward from the ordeal. The murder and its aftermath left deep emotional scars, but the verdict provided a sense of justice and a step toward healing. This tragic case of love, betrayal, and murder serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Crime Case Confidential. Stay tuned for more stories that uncover the darkest corners of the human psyche. If you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate, leave us a comment. Until next time, stay safe.